Welcome to another deep dive, this time into a future where AI, it seems like it's playing a bigger and bigger role every day.
Yeah, it really does feel that way.
And we're breaking down a presentation today, one that was put together specifically for folks like our listeners, adults who are, right in the thick of things, navigating a world that's becoming, increasingly shaped by AI.
And what's really interesting about this presentation is that it looks at the implications of AI through an Islamic lens.
Okay.
So it goes beyond just the technology. It
Right.
really digs into, how it affects us as a society.
Yeah, I mean, are there like specific examples of AI's impact on everyday life? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So the presentation starts by, grounding us in what we're already familiar with, like how technology has already changed so many things.
Right.
For example, slide 7 highlights how much communication has been revolutionized.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. We've gone from handwritten letters and landline calls to like instant messaging and video calls across continents.
It's true. It's funny because you adapt to these changes so quickly that you almost forget what it was like before.
Yeah, totally.
Like I remember when having a cell phone was a novelty and now it's
Yeah.
like an extra limb.
Like we can't live without them.
Exactly. And it's not just communication. The presentation points to other things too, like shopping and healthcare.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, remember when you had to like physically go to a store for everything?
Oh, yeah.
Now you can just shop online for like anything you can imagine.
Yeah. And telehealth, I mean, I've definitely taken advantage of that during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's made it a lot easier for people to get medical advice.
It really has.
So, these are just like a few examples of how technology is already such a big part of our lives.
Right.
But what's next?
Yeah.
Like, how is AI going to build on these trends and, what new things are going to be possible?
Right. Are we all going to be, flying around in spaceships,
Maybe. Who knows?
But it sounds like this presentation is going deeper than just the technical stuff.
Yeah,
You mentioned the ethical and social dimensions of AI.
Yeah, so it looks at things like, the future of work, which
Yeah.
is a big one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a topic that I think is on a lot of people's minds,
Yeah.
especially with concerns about AI taking jobs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How does the presentation approach that whole issue?
So it definitely acknowledges that people are anxious about AI and automation.
Yeah.
And it points out that certain jobs are already starting to disappear,
Okay.
especially in areas like manufacturing and transportation, which are, they're really being affected by automation. But, slide 13 emphasizes that this shift also creates an opportunity.
Okay, so it's not just doom and gloom.
Not at all.
It's like jobs are disappearing,
Yeah.
but new ones are emerging too, and we need to be ready to adapt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about acquiring new skills. And, that's especially important for younger generations.
Yeah, because they're the ones that are, coming into the workforce. That's right.
As this is all happening.
Yeah, like as AI starts doing more of the routine tasks, those human-centric skills are going to be even more valuable things like creativity and critical thinking.
So those things are going to be more important, not less.
Way more important, yeah, because AI can't really replicate those things.
Right. It's interesting to think about how, like, the whole concept of work is going to continue to evolve
Yeah.
as AI becomes more sophisticated. What about education?
Oh, that's a good one.
Does the presentation talk about that? Like, how is AI impacting how we learn?
Oh, yeah, it definitely does.
How is-
So slide 14 explores the rise of, things like personalized learning and online education,
Right.
which, I think we've all seen more and more of, especially recently.
Yeah, especially during the pandemic, everybody went online for everything.
Yeah, for everything.
Yeah.
And AI can actually like tailor the content to individual students.
Oh, wow.
So it creates like a more customized learning experience.
Yeah, I can see the appeal of that.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for, students who maybe don't thrive in a traditional classroom setting.
Yeah, but the presentation does acknowledge that there are some, potential downsides to relying too much on technology for education.
Right.
Like, over-reliance on technology could limit opportunities for kids to interact with each other.
Right, like real-world collaboration
Yeah,
and social skills,
Yeah.
all those things that are really important.
exactly.
So it sounds like finding the right balance is going to be key.
Totally. Yeah.
Leveraging the benefits of AI, but also preserving, those core principles of education that have always been important.
That's the key.
Now, you mentioned earlier that this presentation looks at AI through an Islamic lens. I'm really curious to hear more about that. Like, how did that perspective shape the discussion?
So that's like a really important part of this presentation, and it's kind of woven throughout all the different topics. We're going to delve deeper into the Islamic perspective on AI ethics in the next part of our deep dive. But it's really interesting, it explores how ethical considerations can guide us as we deal with all this new technology.
Okay, so stay tuned for that. It's
Yeah.
a perfect segue to our next point.
Exactly. One thing that really stood out to me is that this presentation goes beyond just, talking about where AI is at right now.
Okay.
It actually makes some pretty interesting predictions about where it's headed in the future.
Oh, wow. Like a crystal ball kind of thing?
Kinda, yeah.
So what are some of the big predictions that it highlights?
Well, one that really caught my attention is the idea that AI systems are going to become way more intelligent and autonomous.
Okay.
Like right now, most AI still needs, humans to kind of oversee it.
Right.
But the presentation suggests that as AI gets more sophisticated, it's going to be able to operate much more independently.
So you're saying that AI will be able to make its own decisions and take actions without us humans constantly having to step in.
Exactly. Yeah. And that leads to another really fascinating prediction,
Okay.
which is the rise of what the presentation calls general purpose AI.
General purpose AI.
What's that? So unlike the AI that we see today, which is mostly designed for very specific tasks,
Right.
general purpose AI would be able to handle a much wider range of functions.
Can you give me an example of what that might look like?
Imagine an AI system that can not only, analyze financial data,
Uh-huh.
but also compose music
Wow.
and write poetry.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's the kind of versatility that general purpose AI could bring.
It's incredible to think about all the things we could do with that kind of technology.
Yeah, totally.
But it also raises some questions
Of course.
about how we control and manage AI
Right.
as it becomes more powerful and more autonomous.
You've hit on a crucial point. I mean, the presentation acknowledges these concerns, but it also emphasizes, the incredible potential benefits.
Right, because there are two sides to every coin.
Exactly. Think about it. AI could analyze huge amounts of medical data to discover new treatments.
Okay.
It could optimize resource allocation to fight climate change,
Wow.
maybe even help us understand the universe in ways that we haven't even thought of yet.
It's true. Like, it could solve some of the world's biggest problems.
Exactly.
It's a powerful reminder that, with any new technology, there's this balance
Yeah.
between the potential risks and the potential rewards.
Always.
But how do we as individuals,
Right.
prepare ourselves and our kids for a world that's, increasingly shaped by AI?
The presentation actually offers some really practical advice.
Okay, I like practical advice.
Yeah, it stresses the importance of lifelong learning
Okay.
and adaptability. The skills that were valuable in the past might not be as relevant in the future.
That's true.
So we need to constantly be learning and evolving.
So it's not just about what we learned in school.
Yeah,
It's about having this mindset of continuous learning
totally.
throughout our lives.
Absolutely. And what specific areas should we be focusing on?
Yeah, what should we be learning?
Well, the presentation highlights critical thinking and problem-solving skills as being super crucial.
Okay.
As AI takes over more of those routine tasks,
Right.
our ability to analyze information, identify patterns, make good judgments is going to be even more important.
So it's not enough to just, accept what AI tells us.
No, not at all.
We have to be able to critically evaluate it and make our own decisions.
Exactly. We need to be able to think for ourselves.
Right. What about the ethical side of things?
Yeah.
Like, how do we make sure that AI is used for good and not for bad?
That's where the Islamic perspective that this presentation weaves in becomes really relevant.
Okay.
It reminds us that, technological advancements should be guided by ethical principles and, a commitment to the well-being of humanity.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how exactly does the presentation connect the Islamic perspective to the development and use of AI?
So it draws on the Prophet Muhammad's emphasis on things like honesty, fairness, and compassion as guiding principles for everything we do, including how we develop and use AI.
So it's about making sure that AI reflects our values
Yes,
and serves humanity.
exactly.
And it's not just operating on algorithms and data.
Technology is a tool,
Okay.
including AI, and like
Yeah.
any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Right.
It's up to us to make sure that, how we develop it and how we use it are guided by ethical considerations.
So what concrete steps does the presentation suggest for ensuring that AI is developed and used responsibly?
Well, it highlights several key areas,
Yeah.
like the need for ethical guidelines and regulations for AI development. Think of it as like creating a framework
Okay.
to make sure that AI is developed in a way that respects human rights,
Right.
promotes fairness,
Yeah.
and avoids, perpetuating existing biases.
So we need safeguards in place
Absolutely, yeah.
to prevent AI from being used in ways that could harm people or society as a whole?
Exactly. The presentation also really emphasizes the importance of education.
Okay.
We need to equip people with the knowledge and skills to understand AI and its potential impacts
Yeah.
and how to use it ethically.
So it's about empowering individuals
Totally.
to be active participants in shaping the future of AI.
Rather than just sitting back and watching it happen.
I like that. Any other insights that stood out to you from the presentation's discussion of responsible AI development?
I thought the emphasis on transparency and accountability was really crucial.
Okay.
It argues that, AI systems should be understandable
Uh-huh.
and their decision-making processes should be transparent so
Right.
that we can scrutinize them and hold them accountable.
That makes sense. I mean, if we're going to trust these AI systems to make important decisions,
Right.
we need to know how they're reaching those decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that transparency can also help to build trust
Oh.
and confidence in AI, which could pave the way for, wider adoption.
Yeah, I mean, if people understand it better, they're more likely to accept it.
Exactly.
This deep dive has really given us a lot to think about. It's not just about understanding the technology itself.
Right.
It's about grappling with its potential impact on society, the
Yeah.
economy,
Yeah.
our values.
It's a big deal.
And I think the presentation does a good job of balancing optimism
Yes.
about AI with a recognition of the challenges and the
Yeah.
ethical considerations.
Yeah. It's not shying away from the tough questions.
It's clear that AI is going to be a bigger and bigger part of our lives.
Yeah.
And this presentation gives us some valuable insights into how we can navigate this new landscape.
And do it in a way that benefits everyone.
And I think one of the key takeaways is that we have a choice in how we shape the future of AI.
We do. It's not something that's just happening to us.
Right.
It's something that we as a society can actually influence and guide in a direction that aligns with our values.
I like that it's a message of empowerment.
It is.
It reminds us that we're not just passive passengers on this technological journey.
We have a role to play.
Exactly. And that brings us to the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
where we'll explore the presentation's concluding thoughts and, what steps we can take as individuals to navigate this AI-driven future.
Sounds good. As we wrap up this deep dive, one thing that's really sticking with me is that this presentation is ultimately a message of empowerment.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't paint this picture of a future where, we're all just at the mercy of AI.
Exactly. It's more about, we have a role to play in shaping how AI fits into our world.
Okay, so it's not just, doom and gloom and robots taking over.
No, not at all.
It's more nuanced than that.
Much more. And, it even offers some practical guidance on how to approach this AI-driven future.
Okay, I like practical.
Yeah, me too.
So what kind of guidance does it give?
Well, one key takeaway is that continuous learning and adaptation are going to be super important.
We've talked about that a bit, but I think it's worth diving a little deeper.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's easy to feel overwhelmed, with technology changing so fast.
I know, right? It's like every day there's something new.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin?
Well, it starts with staying informed, like engaging with resources like books, articles, even podcasts.
Right.
Can help us keep up with the latest developments and understand how they might affect us.
So it's about being curious and open to new information.
Totally, even if it feels a little intimidating sometimes.
Right, because it can be a lot to take in.
It really can, but, it's not enough to just passively absorb information.
Okay.
The presentation really encourages us to develop our critical thinking skills.
Oh, that's so important.
It is, because we need to be able to evaluate the information we're getting, discern fact from fiction and form our own opinions.
That's a good point, especially with all the information overload these days.
Exactly. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
So how do we actually strengthen those critical thinking muscles when it comes to AI?
Well, it's about asking questions, challenging assumptions, and considering multiple perspectives.
Okay.
So, for example, if you read a news story about AI,
Uh-huh.
don't just take it at face value.
Right.
Dig a little deeper. Look at the source. Look for evidence-based reporting.
So kind of like a healthy skepticism
Yeah, exactly.
without becoming, cynical or fearful.
Exactly. And that approach, it can be applied to everything.
Right.
From the news we consume to the products and services we use.
The presentation also talked about understanding how these AI systems actually work, didn't it?
It did, yeah. It suggested that, even a basic understanding of AI can empower us to make better decisions
Okay.
about, its use and development.
So we don't all have to become programmers,
No, not at all.
but it helps to have a grasp of the fundamentals.
Yeah, like lifting the curtain a little bit.
Right, so it's not this mysterious black box anymore.
Exactly. It becomes a tool that we can understand and influence.
I like that. And then that understanding, can inform our actions. Whether it's, advocating for ethical AI or supporting certain policies or just making choices about the AI technology that we use in our own lives.
All of those things, yeah.
Speaking of, making those conscious choices,
Yeah.
the presentation also emphasized the Islamic perspective on AI.
It did, yeah.
Can you remind us how that perspective can guide our approach?
So it really highlights the importance of ethics. Those values of honesty, fairness, compassion that are emphasized in Islamic teachings
Right.
can really serve as guiding principles for how we develop and use AI.
So it's not just about what we can do.
Yeah,
It's about what we should do.
exactly. Considering the impact on individuals and society
Right, taking that broader view.
and recognizing that AI isn't just a technology.
Okay.
It's a force that can actually shape our values or relationships,
Wow.
even our understanding of what it means to be human.
It's a really profound thought. I think this deep dive has been really eye-opening, exploring not just the capabilities of AI, but the ethical considerations and what we can do both individually and collectively.
And, it leaves me feeling hopeful.
Yeah, me too.
Like we have a real opportunity here to shape an AI-driven future that's positive.
That benefits everyone.
Exactly, a future where technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
Well said. And to our listeners, I hope this deep dive has given you some things to think about and maybe even inspired you to engage with the world of AI in a more meaningful way.
Because remember, the future of AI isn't set in stone. It's something that we're all creating together, one decision, one action at a time.